Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining this week's Tips and Tricks webinar. Today's topic is best practices for working with TAC. Please use the Q&A chat. You have any questions during the webinar, we'll make sure we answer those. Our presenter today is a Diamond Services engineer from TAC down in Texas, Jay Johnson. Jay, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, right? Today's Thursday. All right.
It is.
Almost Friday, So, yeah, so for anybody who needs a little more information about how to work with TAC and support, I'll try and cover the basics. And if you guys have any questions at the end, feel free to ask away. So basically what we're going to do is kind of get to know a little bit more about TAC, how to work with us and how to escalate within TAC. Those are a lot of common questions that we get in support at various levels and whatnot. So we'll try and cover those. So these are the basic support programs and whatnot. And when you work with your SCs and partners, stuff like that, they pretty much explain these things to you, stuff like that. So this could be different per customers, but one thing that's pretty standard across the board is just the response time. And if you see in this, the second line down, the SEV1 issues, the SEV1 issues are always handled with the highest priority. And then as it cascades down to 2, 3, and 4, the time expands from 2 hours, 4 hours. And what that means is, for instance, if you went and opened up a ticket online and you put it at a critical severity level, it's going to get a response from someone in TAC, whether it's the actual support engineer or a manager managing the queue and whatnot, within 30 minutes to help assist with your problem. And as I said, the time will cascade down from there based on the severity. A lot of this stuff is handled by your support team and stuff like that, not necessarily the engineers that are actually working the issues, but this is just kind of an overview of what different support plans offer, as well as, you know, what can be expected where like the 5x9 business day or the 7/24/365 and so on and so forth. We have several TACs within Checkpoint. We use the follow the sun system or mentality, whatever you want to say. So, you know, between US DTAC and OTAC Canada and ITAC and Japan and India, stuff like that, we have people, live people, I should say, 24/7. And it seems pretty industry standard for a lot of different support services and stuff like that, that they use the follow the sun method, and we are no different. So within TAC, we have different support teams, and depending on how big your environment is, what you have configured and stuff like that, you know that we have a lot of different products. We have between endpoint solutions for your desktop, or the firewall itself has multiple blades you can enable, like identity awareness, DLP, app control, VPN site to site, and then what we like to call the high-end team, which is just the basic kernel infrastructure for the firewall policy inspection that handles dynamic routing, clustering. You know, these are kind of just the major facets of each particular team. And then we've got the management team and account services. And the management team shouldn't be confused with like account management. That is the management product that hosts the database and can push policy to a firewall and stuff like that. But with that said, and you'll see as we go through some of the slides here, when you open up a ticket and work with it, your issue will relate to one of these different teams. For instance, if you've got a site-to-site VPN and there's an issue with your tunnel, you would tag your ticket under the VPN products, therefore it gets routed correctly within TAC once the ticket is created. So there are a few different channels we have for communication within TAC. We have chat, we have phone, we have web, and on-site. And what these mean is when you go to like checkpoint.com or checkpointsupport.com, I believe is the URL, there'll be a little chat box you can open up and you can start talking with someone. And that's kind of like, I won't say it's our first line of defense, but that's the most easiest line to get communication rolling with support. If you need have an issue, they can help you facilitate getting the ticket open. And a lot of times they can actually point you to the right SK that may be able to solve your issue a lot quicker than calling in support and opening ticket that way. As this says, about 40% of support interactions begin there. And people tend to gravitate what they learn up front and get more comfortable with. So if you're a chat person and that becomes easy for you, most likely that's how it's going to go. At the end of the day, all tickets will end up in the same place depending on how, what type of effort needs to, but chat is a very simple way to get stuff going. Obviously, we have the phone. You can open up a ticket on the web, and on-site is more in depth as far as when the stuff needs to be handled at the customer's location and stuff like that. Let's see here. And then there's the Checkpoint Pro support stuff, which is a different type of service plan for proactive stuff and whatnot. One second here. So service workflow. Within TAC itself, we have a tiered system there as far as most people in IT are familiar with the tiered structure: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and so on. So when you first open up a ticket, let's say it goes to chat, then comes into TAC, you'll be transferred to the frontline engineers. They're the ones who are going to gather the basic information, start to do some quick diagnosis of the problem, see if it's going to be quickly resolved, maybe initiate some debugs and stuff like that. Our frontline is broken down into teams as well. So we will have, let's say, a management team which handles the database stuff. We'll have the kernel team or the high-end team. Those terms are interchangeable. And then the VPN team, which handles obviously VPN, remote access, and the security team, or the Blades team, as we used to call it. And they handle app control, URL filtering, so on and so forth. But within our infrastructure, we have the front line, and we have those teams segmented within the front line. So your ticket will be routed to those, and they will start the initial process. If it's not able to be resolved within a certain amount of time, then it will be moved up to what's called a product team expert. These product teams have a bit more expertise within a specific area of, let's say, the Blades team and whatnot, and then the structure will just keep going through there. And if need be, it could reach the escalation engineer, and depending on the severity of the bug, eventually get engaged with R&D and CFG and so on and so forth. So this is pretty standard, and it's just based on the level of the issue that needs to be worked on, whether it can be handled within short amount of time, and so on and so forth. So working with TAC, it's kind of redundant what we just said, but one thing to keep in mind is TAC as a whole, the support scope is break fix organization, to where if it's broke, call us, we'll help fix it. Sometimes we'll get people who will call in and they will say, oh, we want to deploy X, Y, or Z, and it's technically not in production. That stuff is typically handled by different teams, and TAC support is focused on existing deployments that are broken or were working and then broke and stuff like that. There is a little bit of gray area for myself. For instance, I'm a diamond engineer, so I work directly with specific customers, and between my involvement with the customer and the account team, they do have things called diamond days, to where the customer can be like, hey, we have this project we want to work on, and then they can allocate those diamond days for, let's say, myself to help assist with some project deployment and stuff like that. But as a whole, support is seen as a break fix, and it's good to keep that in mind. And I'm sure your account teams and stuff like that are able to assist and help point in the right direction. If you say, hey, we want to do X, Y, or Z, they could be like, well, that's more of a TAC thing, or that could be more of a PS or POC type engagement program. As far as ownership goes, on a support ticket, whichever engineer is eventually assigned your ticket, that is going to be your point of contact. And like I said, we have multiple people on multiple teams. The emails you will get back and forth will come from support.checkpoint.com. And that, let's say I was a product engineer or escalation engineer, the communication will come directly from me, and then I will be that person who will facilitate any communication that needs to go above myself, such as like with CFG and R&D to help facilitate remote sessions and stuff like that. Our engineers will basically try and keep the customers updated as much as possible with what's going on outside of the customer's line of sight. And they're kind of the mediator between the customer and, let's say, development, to make sure that the communication is going back and forth, what's needed, what's expected, kind of set expectations, so on and so forth. And we do have after hours assistance, depending on where the sun is at, so to speak. And it's a full coverage around the globe. So this is just kind of a breakdown about how to create service requests, which I kind of touched on a little bit. Obviously 24/7 phone support, the live chat, and you can log into the website as well. It's one interesting, because as an engineer for myself, customers will ask me, "Is like, oh, how do I do this on a ticket?" It's interesting because we have a different system that we work with. So sometimes what the user is seeing on the customer side open tickets is slightly different than what we have. So bear in mind, you might ask a question sometimes like, "Hey, I'm not seeing this," and they may or may not be able to answer. I don't think I've, in my years at Checkpoint, have ever seen what the customer actually sees. So that would be kind of interesting when opening up a ticket online. A little bit more of a breakdown as far as, chat, the web requests, and the criteria of when to use what. And so chat's kind of broken down as like quick questions, consultation, some licensing issue, and even say, "Hey, can I get help opening up an SR?" Web service is another somewhat easy and quick way to do it as well. And you can do that when you don't need to work on an issue like at that moment. The phone itself is when you want to get in, and let's say you have an issue that's happening right now, you can call in, and you'll get someone on the line, and they'll be able to start the process and direct you to where you need to go, and try and get the right people on the line to start mitigating the issues in real time. And this probably goes without saying for everybody on the call here, but if it's critical, call us. We want to make sure that we get you back up and running, depending on what the issue is, as quick as possible. And we'll kind of dive into what exactly is critical and what is not critical here in a couple slides. So this is how to effectively open a ticket, because some people are very verbose when opening tickets, and some people are not when they open up tickets. So we want to give the TAC engineer as much information as possible. And as you can see, there's like, describe the symptoms, what may have triggered it, what circumstances does the problem occur, is it high load, long run time, renegotiation of a tunnel. Can we replicate the problem? It is going to be a question you're going to be asked. Or is the problem happening right now? Or did you temporarily do something to resolve the problem, but the underlying problem still may exist? And then if you're able to have done that, can you collect information for us? As anybody who's got a little bit of Checkpoint experience, we have all kinds of ELG files for all of our different process and daemons that are constantly writing stuff there. There's some basic debugs you can provide on the ticket as well, topology, information about remote sessions, stuff like that. Like, as much information as you can put on a ticket is going to help expedite the process, as well as make things go a little bit smoother. Because there's a lot of things that, and I'm not sure if it's in a later slide, but I'll cover it now. It's like one thing to make sure when you open up a ticket that the version and jumbo are accurate. For instance, if you've got a problem with, let's say a NAT's not working correctly on like a policy rule, and you're on already 40 take 102, and you put that in the ticket, it opens up, and when that ticket gets directed to someone on the kernel team, they're going to start looking at the preliminary information, and they're going to look at the verbose information that you put in as the customer, and they're going to be like, "Oh, this is a NAT issue," and they're going to start checking their internal resources, and they'll be like, "Oh, I knew there was a NAT issue," and they find this NAT issue, and it's like, "Oh, this is fixed in jumbo take 120, and the customer's on 102. They're going to say, this could be addressed in this particular jumbo. Most likely, they'll provide you a link to the jumbo SK with the section of what they're referring to. And then in some cases, they could be like, "Oh, I've seen this issue before," and they'll look, "Oh, that's resolved in take 98. They're already on 102. That means we need to get some more information. So having that preliminary information up front on a ticket could mean different timeframes on resolution and whatnot on your issue. So the more accurate we can be on opening a ticket, the better. And I believe I covered this a little bit ago, but making sure you pick the right product when you open a ticket too, it's going to get stuff directed to the right team, so it's not going to bounce around internally and whatnot. I'm not sure if I have a slide on that coming up, but a lot of the commonly requested data that's going to be asked when you open up a support ticket is CP info. That's kind of like our, I mean, it's our catch-all. It basically takes a very verbose summary of the system and actually provides us the actual ELG files and stuff like that of the device, whether it's a gateway or management system. So a CP info will provide an engineer a lot of information. They can vary in size depending on the environment, but that's a commonly requested thing on most tickets. So if you know that up front and you have one ready to go when you open a ticket, that's just going to help the process go a little bit smoother. CLISH configurations, for instance, you could do a whole CLISH configuration with like show configuration, or let's say you're having a problem with SNMP. So you could go into CLISH and do show configuration SNMP, take that text output and put it in the detail section of a ticket when you open up, just because it relates to the issue you're having. And then the engineer, when they get that ticket, they can do a quick once over, look at the configuration to see if anything jumps out at them and stuff like that. And you'll pick up on the trends that I'm getting to. The more information, the better. Varlog messages is another one that captures a lot of syslog and whatnot. So we were able to extract a lot of data from those. Screenshots of the errors, if the error is kind of popped up and went away and you can repeat it, do it again, take a screenshot. Depending on the level and severity of the issue, backups are always good to have on hand. Snapshots are okay as well, but typically we'll work with migrate exports or MDS backups depending on the Smart Center deployment, and that helps us replicate your guys's environment within our lab should the resolution need to go to a replication. Some other commonly requested things are packet captures. These are invaluable in a lot of issues that are relating to traffic, firewall inspection and stuff like that. And one thing I would highlight as well is, depending on your experience with checkpoint products, try and get 2 packet captures. Some people will go in and they'll use the any interface, which captures basically everything on the box, which is good at 35,000 feet. However, it's very hard to dig in and decipher certain things when we're starting to look at specific issues. So if you're taking packet captures, we would request one on the egress and ingress interface, basically on each side of the kernel, each side of the firewall. So if traffic is coming in ETH0 and it's leaving ETH1, and we think there may be something going on within the firewall, taking a capture on one interface separately and the other interface at the same time, I might add, and then providing those to support, it allows us to see, for one, if the packet's even going through the firewall, so on and so forth. Traffic logs with Smart Console. Those are always valuable to have. You could take screenshots of those, or you could actually just click on the log and export the data, stuff like that. And probably the most frequently question you will be asked is configuration changes. A lot of times customers will call in and say, this was working and it just stopped working, which happens, don't get me wrong, but 8, 9 times out of 10, something has changed. And if something has been working for a year, perfectly stable and stuff like that, and all of a sudden something just changes or something just stops working, there's a catalyst that happens, and it's something that's changed. Not that someone did something on purpose or by accident or whatever. For instance, if you've got 10 VLANs configured on a firewall and you deploy a new switch in your environment, and all of a sudden certain traffic stops working, and someone calls in and says, this traffic's just not going through the firewall now, the first question that's going to be asked is, did something change? And they'll be like, no, nothing changed on the firewall. Say, we understand nothing changed on the firewall, but did something change in the environment? Like, oh, we put a switch in. Okay, so this VLAN's not working. So is this VLAN on that switch port configured? A lot of times, there could be oversight, stuff like that. So when there's changes in the environment, it's good to include that, because even though it may not be checkpoint related, it could be the catalyst of why something may not be seen as not working. Sorry, I know that's a little bit verbose, and it kind of comes into this next slide about SR description. You can see here, the one on the left is a bad example. Install a jumbo, this doesn't happen. Doesn't really help the engineer out too much because that's going to require a lot more questions. But you see on the right, they give a quick breakdown. They even give us some error messages on what they're seeing after this, and even some potential debugs. The most accurate information that can be given helps immensely to the engineers on the other side trying to help resolve this, whether it's via email or hands-on stuff. The proactive support stuff is something you can do, and is very beneficial if you know something is coming, to where, as you can see in the examples, like we're going to be upgrading this cluster to X version on this date. So you can open up a ticket. Some customers open up a ticket a week in advance. That's a bit long. We don't like to have tickets just sitting around stagnant for that long, but a day or two before the upgrade, open up the ticket, explain what you're doing, what you're expected to see, put the window times in, the maintenance windows times, so on and so forth. And then that will be able to be assigned to an engineer, monitored, stuff like that, depending on the severity of the environment and whatnot, that will be assigned, and they'll have eyes and visibility on it if need be. And just so that we're aware of it, so you can call in and be like, hey, I've got ticket ABC for this thing. It's most likely already been assigned to someone and watching, so you don't have to go through the process of opening the ticket during that maintenance window. It saves time if there was an issue itself. So how to escalate with TAC. This is a bit of a interesting one, because escalate means a lot of things to different people. But escalating within TAC, obviously, if you opened up a ticket and you're not getting much communication, you can call in and try and speak to the engineer directly to try and get some more information. If the issue is urgent and needs to be dealt with like right now, call in and ask for the manager on duty. Each team that handles tickets has a manager on duty that is monitoring things throughout the day. Also, in the email tag of the engineer who has been assigned your ticket, they should, in their signature, they should have their direct team manager. And as you see on the left here, Bob Smart, team manager, which should have his credentials or his contact information. So if your ticket is not getting the expected attention or whatnot, you are more than welcome to reach out to the manager directly, and then they'll circle back with the engineer, so on and so forth. You can also do this online through User Center with the ticket itself. There is a button that says request a manager, escalation and whatnot, and that will basically flag the ticket within our database, which will then alert the manager and the engineer who owns the ticket to move it up the list, so to speak, to get some visibility on it. The reasons to escalate. Now, this kind of is different from customer to customer, because every customer's issue is important to us. Every customer has different versions or ideas of what the severity level is. But just as a rule of thumb, keeping these type of definitions in mind will help determine the need to escalate or whatnot. For instance, reasons to escalate: business critical. Are we down? We're not passing traffic. Our cluster's down. We got to get stuff back up. That is business critical. That is a reason to escalate. And you can also, and I'll cover this in a second, I think I got a couple slides left. Lack of meaningful progress. If you've got a ticket that it's just been kind of sitting around, maybe you're not getting some updates that you want, or it's getting a little bit long in the tooth, you could escalate there to get the manager to check into it and see exactly why it's not getting some attention. We do a pretty good job, in my opinion, because I'm from the support side, but there are those times to where there are some oversights. Severity of the issue. You could potentially open up a ticket, let's say with a high severity, is like, hey, we had a clustering issue this morning, and it's back up. We got a workaround. It's working right now because we're in production. We don't want to make changes. But then let's say something happened again and the cluster went back down and the ticket's already opened as a high severity. You can go in and change that to a critical in our system, and it will flag it and basically let us know that a ticket has been changed from high to critical, and we'll get the right eyes on it. Personally, if it were me and that happened, I might not bother with escalating to critical within the database. I would probably just call in, but that's, that's your comfortable or your comfort level. And then there's other reasons to escalate, like for political reasons. Depending on what's going on with the hierarchy of your infrastructure and whatnot. I've worked with customers in the past where certain people at certain levels need certain information, and so it's just escalated to a certain level just to maintain certain visibility as we go through the process and whatnot. So the Escalate, the SEV1 is the biggest escalation point. And as you can see here, call into TAC, and then there's a list of the different managers throughout the different TACs and their email and whatnot. And Atan is the head of customer support and whatnot. You can fill out this escalation form and stuff like that, explain why you're escalating, because if you go hit the escalate to manager button online, it's going to ask you why, because there have been customers in the past who just hit the escalate button as they just want us to work on their issue now, which I completely understand. But in some situations, that's not entirely accurate, because we reserve the SEV1 severity level for critical, for mission critical. And although each customer has a different variation of what is mission critical, it's not fair to other customers to deem to put something as critical that could take attention and put it on it where something is not down. So I would encourage you, if you're using the escalate button and the SEV1 critical status, to evaluate your environment, because if two tickets come in at the same time and they're both critical SEV1, one's an actual cluster down and one of them is, hey, I can't log into Smart Console to check something benign, so to speak, but this engineer wants to get a Smart Console and he puts it as a critical SEV1. And if that ticket happens to come in, right before this other one, it's going to get resources allocated to that to start looking into it. And not that necessarily it's going to delay the other customers from getting looked at, but in the grand scheme of one being mission critical and one not, we want to make sure that the customers that are experiencing the mission critical stuff at that time get the full attention. So just be mindful of that. That would be a request from the support standpoint to, evaluate the overall impact and try and open up things accordingly. And as I said, all the tickets and all the customers are important to us, and we do our best to prioritize and meet the needs of everybody on every level as we can. But that's about it. If you guys have any questions or whatnot, I'm at your disposal.
Yep, we do have some questions. Thanks, Jay. You covered a couple of them there. Description of a SEV1. Go through here. You mentioned two things that might have been slightly confusing to somebody who didn't know these. So you mentioned pro support versus proactive support. Can you just give a quick what the difference of those two are so we don't get confused?
Yeah, so proactive is, we have an upgrade coming up. Proactive is a term, not necessarily a support contract. So proactive is, this weekend, we're upgrading one of our, let's say, online banking clusters, and we're going from 80/20, stuff like that. We just want Checkpoint to know about it, and we want to have a ticket created already so we don't have to go through the process should during the upgrade maintenance window we run into an issue. So let's say, Chase will call in and open up a proactive ticket on Thursday or Friday saying, hey, we're upgrading this cluster on Saturday night, this time, stuff like that. This is our plan. And they'll put that information in there, and that ticket will be assigned to an engineer and it'll be in their queue. And if there happens to be an issue during that maintenance window, Chase would call in and just have that ticket number ready to go. They won't have to go through the process of opening the ticket to get someone online. That ticket is already created. It's already sitting there, and they can use as a point of reference to work from. So it saves time and stuff like that. The proactive support, it's a support plan. I'm not 100% familiar with it on all of its facets, but for instance, you can sign up for a support plan to where, let's say your firewall gets an FWD core. The firewall will reach out to Checkpoint, basically open up an automatic ticket, upload the needed files to our database, and create the ticket. And that ticket will just be auto-generated and sent to the proper teams for evaluation. And it will even go so far as to look through our internal resources to see if there's any known fixes for it and put those in the ticket as well. So it's they call it proactive support because it automates a lot of different things for various situations.
Right. And that's something, talk to your account team. They can give you some more details on that or show you a sample report or a demo of it on your environment. But we found it very helpful in a lot of places, to even before you notice a problem, the firewall reaches out and opens a ticket.
Correct.
You mentioned escalation earlier, and you mentioned CFG. Can you just what CFG is?
CFG is it's called Customer Focus Group, but it's development. It's a different branch of development that interacts with the customer and whatnot. It's basically code break fix, so to speak. It's just a different tier of software development. It's not the guys who are actually writing the code, let's say in Israel, stuff like that, but they're the guys who are maintaining and working on existing code. So it's just another tier above escalation, but those are the guys who actually work on the hot fixes and so on and so forth.
Okay, kind of between TAC escalation and R&D, right?
Correct. Yeah, that would be a good explanation of it. They consider them to be on the same team, but there is a little bit of a distinction on job roles and stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Edward asked a question. He started with, "Thank you for the presentation." So there you go, Jay.
You're welcome.
What's the process when you're implementing a solution, for example, implementing HTTPS inspection, but it's not working as documented? It's not technically a break fix scenario, but it's not a bug. How do you proceed? So doing something new, but it's not doing what is expected.
That's a bit of a gray area, and so that's a good question. I would say that if you're deploying something and it's, let's say, not full production, I would engage your SE and get their take on it, and they'll be able to kind of help direct you. I mean, you're always welcome to open up a ticket. I would just say you will be questioned on, is this has this been deployed, so on and so forth. So like I said, that it's a little bit of gray. I would first reach out to your account team and your SE and get their feedback on how they want to proceed with that particular stuff, because they may be able to do a quick high level, be like, oh, this is a configuration thing versus an actual bug, and just get some preliminary eyes on it and then go from there. And if they don't know, then they'll probably say, let's open up a ticket and go from there.
Yeah, good. I think you covered the rest of them already, and we're a little bit over. So thank you, Jay. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Good information. One thing you did say about, other environmental issues within your environment. So obviously you have a checkpoint problem. Everybody's laser focused on the firewall, but, other changes in your environment, adding switches, changing, port configurations is important. So you've heard the term, never lie to your doctor or lawyer. I would add TAC support engineer on that list too. Just tell them everything that's going on, everything that has happened before the issue started, give us a better view of how we can help fix it.
Absolutely.
So thanks again, Jay. We'll follow up. We'll send the follow-up email with any reference content. I know you had some links in there, Jay, so to SKs and the public site. So I'll include those in the follow-up email so you didn't have to jot those down. Our next webinar will be in 2 weeks. You'll see the invitation for that soon. And just a reminder for everybody, please let me know if there's any topics or anything you would like to see in these sessions. Always want to make these as meaningful as possible for you. So please let me know if there's anything you want to see, and I'll be happy to add it to the rotation. So with that, we'll let you go. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks, Jay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye all.